Well, we have a surprisingly good crop of nectarines this year on our one and only nectarine tree here at our Studio Gardens orchard. Now, if you look though, they're really not quite as big as they could be. They almost look more like a plum than anything else. And that's because, again, we didn't really come in and thin them like we should earlier on. So because it's so heavily loaded, the fruit are a little bit smaller. So remember, it really does pay off to thin them and you'll get a little bit bigger fruit on them. Now this particular cultivar is called Sure Crop. And Sure Crop nectarine is one of the earliest recommended varieties for Oklahoma. So again, that's why they're ripening on us so early here in late May. And of course this will be airing in June. But remember, a nectarine is really nothing more than just a fuzzless peach. And so what that really tells you is that you need to grow it just like you would a peach. It doesn't like wet conditions. You'll notice we've raised it up a little bit. And you would prune it, spray it, do all the same things that you would do on a peach, and you'll have some success that way on your nectarines. And again, they really do quite well for us here in Oklahoma. Now, I'd like to take you over now to another part of the orchard and show you an apple tree, a couple of them actually, that we planted 2 years ago that's really not grown very much. But at the same time, they're not supposed to be growing very much because they're kind of touted as the world's most compact apple trees. And let me show you what I'm talking about. Well, these are our two columnar or colonnade apples, as they're referred to by Stark Brothers Nurseries out of Missouri, and they're patented only by that company. And again, they're supposedly very compact trees, and they also tell us that they'll grow about 8 feet at maturity and only stay about 2 feet wide. So you can imagine how they could be used in a landscape or in your garden. Now, the one behind me is actually a variety called Scarlet Spire. And this particular one would be a red over green apple with great flavor, and it would mature probably anywhere from mid to late September. So it's not really put any fruit on for us because, again, the trees have only been in the ground a little over 2 years. But the one here in front of me is Maypole colonnade apple, and it's actually a crab apple type. Again, the same growth characteristics, but it would have more showy flowers, which would be kind of a crimson red flower, but you can see the fruit here is almost a burgundy or a wine color, so they're not going to get very big because, again, they're a crab apple. Now, they're still edible, but this one has a little bit more ornamental type appearance, and you can tell even the new leaves that are coming out are a nice burgundy color, so it offers an attractive display of color for your landscape. Now, there's actually 3 other of the colonnade varieties or cultivars. There's also Emerald Spire, which is green with a golden blush, Crimson Spire, which is more of a crimson red, and Ultra Spire, which would be red with a yellowish blush to it, but it's supposedly the most compact of all of the 5 cultivars that have been released. Now, like so many of the new improved cultivars of apples, this one is budded, and let me show you what I'm talking about. You can see where the bud union took place on a rootstock, and that's what's growing in the ground, and you can see how much bigger it's getting, and then this is staying smaller. So far, it looks like it's pretty compatible, and it's going to work out for us okay, and we've been pleased with it again, both of them. And we had fruit a little early on this one, 2 years. They suggest 3 years, but again, remember, they're only exclusively available through Stark Brothers out of Missouri. They have a mail order catalog, so you can order them through the mail, or you can go to some of the retail nurseries that carry Stark Brother trees, and you should be able to find them as well. So if you're looking for the right fruit tree to go in a small space or even in a container, these are probably a good choice. Again, it's the Colonnade series from Stark Brothers out of Missouri. Well, we're starting to reap the benefits from some of our vegetables, and of course this year we're trying to plant purple vegetables to emphasize the fact that you can have some very attractive vegetable plants that you can incorporate in your landscape as well as in your garden. And what I'm harvesting is actually referred to as red giant, or sometimes you'll hear giant red mustard greens. And the reason that it's referred to as giant is obviously the leaves get a little bit bigger, so they're a little bit more tender to use as they get bigger compared to some of the mustard greens. Now, obviously with mustard greens, it may be an acquired taste, But you can pick some of the smaller leaves individually, break them up and use a little bit in a fresh salad, and of course you can cook them or steam them as well. But this is about the best size to harvest them. If you look at this particular one over here, it's really reaching its peak, almost past its peak, because it's starting to send up the flowers, which would then turn to seed, and this is referred to as bolting, because as the temperatures get hotter and the day lengths get longer, you'll notice this with our cool season crops. This one is actually slower to bolt than a lot of them, which again, here we are going into June and we're still able to harvest them. Now, once it gets to this point, sometimes it gets a little bit stronger and more bitter even, but again, if you're going to cook them and you drain the liquid off, it's still okay to use. So this one's pretty common, and again, you can see the attractive purple veins, basically that gives it the purplish color. And again, that's giant red or red giant mustard. Well, several weeks ago, you may recall that Sue Gray showed you how our cool season crops were coming along here in this particular raised bed. And of course, they were very lush and starting to reach their peak. Well, it doesn't take long for some of those things to change, especially with all the recent rain we've had. This is all damage from the cabbage loop, or the imported cabbage worm. And of course, they get on the underneath sides and they chew holes in them. And they're actually quite easy to control if you'll get on them fairly early with some of the natural type products that are referred to as BT or Bacillus thuringiensis. But the problem has been trying to keep it sprayed and compete with all the rain that we've had. So as a result, it doesn't take them any time to start chewing some nice holes in there. But I wanted you to see how the purple cabbages were coming along. You can see the differences. This one is a little bit darker purple. This one is a ruby ball variety, and it's actually turning out quite nicely. And I think we'll go ahead and harvest that one, especially since we've been having a lot of problems here. Now I'm gonna give it a try with our tedious knife there, but a lot of times you can harvest them with a few more leaves on them, which will help them preserve them a little bit, but then you'd want to clean all that off when you're ready to eat them. And of course, this, along with some of our purple or red onions that we've picked and our mustard greens, will probably make for some good eating, and we'll be enjoying that. But again, really the key to your vegetable gardening is just to stay on top of things and get out there and inspect them. And in the meantime, we're going to clean some of this up and try to get ahead of schedule on our spraying with the BT products.